What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Breakdown Podcast. I'm the host, Anthony Cava, and today we are joined by professional boxer Steve Claggett. Steve is a longtime contender who's competed at the world level, known for his pressure style and durability. Over the years, he has fought for and won numerous minor belts, and one of his recent fights finally got a crack at a major world title against none other than world champion Teofimo Lopez. We talk about his journey in boxing, his time training at the Floyd Mayweather Gym, his fight against Teofimo Lopez, his plans for upcoming and future fights, and much, much more. This was a great conversation, so without further ado, let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Claggett. Welcome, man. We got Steve the Dragon Claggett, pro boxer, fought for a lot of minor titles, also major title recently. We're going to get all into all of that, but I want to start kind of just for right now. You were supposed to fight this past, was it August?
Yeah, August 23rd against Jermaine Ortiz.
Yeah. And so talk about what happened to that, because you've had now, it's been about over a year. You've had a
Yeah.
little bit of a layoff. So talk about what happened there.
Well, I was getting ready for the fight and I was leaving Calgary. It's a long story, but pretty much I tore the tendon in my shoulder. And I was sparring and I was overdoing it and I knew I did something wrong because I injured my shoulder one day sparring and then I went to Montreal because I do my training camp, the end of my training camps out there, and I knew something was up. I went to the doctor and I got it checked up. I got like a scan. I got, the actual official result, and they're like, "Yeah, your tendon is torn. You will not be fighting for because the fight was in a couple weeks at that point, and that was a hard one to handle. But I can't do anything about it, so I can't fight with one arm. So I've been on the bench since, but I've been training with my other arm. So I've been working, man. You know what? It's not over till it's over. So I'm just staying steady, working hard, getting ready for the next one.
Yeah, of course, man. And if there's anything about you that people have noticed throughout your career, it's definitely the resilience aspect, the toughness aspect that you can bring to the table. And again, we're going to get into that in a minute, but you had a 12 round, I believe it was 12 rounds, right? 12 round war with Teofimo Lopez, which was your not your last fight, the fight before.
Yep.
Um, and that was your first crack at a world title, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So
The
you
first,
had.
but not the last.
Oh no, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, actually, I want to ask before we get into that. So, because I always wondered, I feel like it's different with every situation, but how does that work with more serious injuries like that? Like, is it up to the doctor's discretion, or can you just choose to go fight if you feel like it?
Well, in that spot, it was like it's always pretty much your discretion, but in that spot I couldn't use my left arm. Like
Right.
I was sparring one-handed for 3 weeks. I was in the gym every day. I was still doing my same thing, but I'm only working with one hand. And it's like you can't fight a fight of that magnitude with one hand. And I was trying, man. I did everything I was supposed to do to try and recover. I was working on the right hand, working on the supporting muscles. I was seeing physio and I was going to get all the tests and everything I could. But it came to the point where it was about, a couple weeks out. And actually, I kind of got lucky because I have a great promotional team behind me. And somebody from the promotional team called me and he said, "Steve, I heard you're injured." And he had told me what he was thinking. And he's like, "I don't like this. I don't want you to take a fight half prepared." And that was, I didn't actually know that that was an option, really, because I was thinking, like, I was in a bad spot. I was getting ready to have the fight, even with one hand, but I don't know. That's just kind of like the fighter in me, I guess, because I don't know, just prepare. Like I was thinking, I'm like, I'm gonna use it, and then after the fight, it's gonna be the worst pain of my life. And that's not the best place to be in going into a huge fight. But well, I didn't know that there was another option, so I was getting ready. And then at some point, it was just like, okay, you're injured. You're not going to be able to fight. Like, you can't go in with one arm. So I don't know. That was pretty much the bottom line. And I was sparring, I was doing everything, and I was trying to use my left arm, but it wasn't happening, man. And it's a legitimate, like, I don't know. When they showed me the tear and the scan, and the doctor's like, see that? That is a tear in your tendon. It's ripped all the way through. And I'm like, okay, yeah, and so I had to kind of just accept. But it's not it's always there's always a way, there's always something you can do. So when my left arm was busted, I worked on my right. When I was a little kid, I broke my right hand. I went to the boxing gym, and we weren't allowed to fight or get into trouble or do anything like that. So I was kind of being punished. And my trainer made me spar with everyone and made me do all the work anyways. So I was sparring left-handed, and I developed a really good jab and a left hook to the body, which went on to be two of my best punches. So maybe this past couple months has been the other side, you know. So I'm looking at the positive.
I mean, there's always anytime you can persevere through something like that, you've got to realize, I mean, especially at this level, you got to realize there's usually something better on the other end of it, in another
Yeah,
form. But yeah, man. So uh you were taking back to your childhood, actually, you just mentioned coming up and sparring at your gym. What gym did you start at? You're
I was
from
at
Canada and you're pretty proud of it. So talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
I'm from Calgary. I'm from Calgary. I was born and raised here. Um, I started boxing at a gym called Teofimo Boxing, and it's still here in Calgary, but it has moved locations. However, when I started here, we didn't even have a gym. It was just myself and my trainer, Eric de Guzman. He was the owner, and we were training out of a gym called Fitness Northwest in Northwest Calgary. And I was there, and we just had a heavy bag and some pads, and we did all our stuff. It was almost like, I don't know, just grassroots training. We're training in the corner of a gym, working on stuff. And then at a certain point, Eric was able to get his own gym, open up his own location. But that was the very beginning of it. I started when I'm 12 or 13. And then I remember I immediately loved it. And I already had like an aggressive streak. I've always been like a nice guy, but I have like an aggressive, like a fighter in me. I don't know how to explain it, but I just always found myself in the middle of stuff. So it was a good outlet for me. And it was something that right away, I loved it. It was the best thing I ever found. And you know what? I'm still doing it today. So I guess I found something good.
You were fighting a lot outside the ring as a kid.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It wasn't like I was like an angry kid, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Like I found out, oh, I like to fight. And I remember being a child and fighting with the kids in the alley and fighting my neighbors and stuff. And then the next day they'd come back and they'd try and get me again. And we had these like, I don't know, it's just they say you're not born to be, or you don't choose to be a fighter. Fighting chooses you. So that was really me. I just woke up one day and I'd been doing it my whole life.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't change it though.
Now, were these fights when you were getting into like as a kid, were these like a mutual understanding you guys were just going to go out there and scrap, or were these like serious, like you guys had beef?
Well, usually it happens quick because if you know how a street fight goes. We don't usually have time to prepare. But when something happens, it turns into an altercation, and then we're getting ready to go and we're fighting. Now, mind you, I did have other times when it was arranged. That was a little later in life when, oh, Steve's fighting this guy, they're fighting at the hill, or they're fighting in the field, or whatever it is. Then you go there, and that was a whole nother thing. But I always I always had just a magnet to me. People wanted to fight me. I don't know exactly why. I'm not like a mean guy, but I I just found my way into the middle of things. And I never really, it wasn't like I wanted to hurt people really bad. It wasn't like I wanted to break rules or I love to fight. Even when I was younger, I was always scrapping with my cousins and wrestling and fighting with my neighbor. It's in the blood. And I guess the same thing for me. So it's been something I've always done, and I love it now more than ever, though. And now I have a good path, and I'm doing it professionally. So it's a little bit of a different game.
Yeah, now you're actually getting paid to do that. So,
Exactly,
um,
exactly.
yeah. So, I really like that story though. You talk about, it just kind of being you and your trainer and some pads. And there was a quote I heard basically about like you can get in the best shape of your life by yourself in an empty room. And and I know that a lot of these, especially nowadays, there's a lot of early specialization and there's tons of money being dumped into youth sports. But of course, you went a different route of kind of like you said, just being alone with your trainer. Can you speak to how that kind of differs from, nowadays, the more money being dumped into these kids at a young age?
Well, I mean, at the beginning, it was just me and my trainer. I had another friend sign up with me, but he didn't do it for as long, and he started, he was just kind of getting in shape and stuff. But I always find that the connection between yourself and your trainer is really important because when you go and fight, that's the guy you're going to lean on. That's the guy you're going to trust. That's the guy you're going to look to when I don't want to say it sounds so extreme, but your life's on the line. And you look and your trainer, as long as you guys have built that, you've done the work, you have that communication, you have that bond, you kind of know what he's saying without him saying it. I think that's a really important piece in the game because in the heat of the moment, when you're at your stupidest in the middle of a fight, and your trainer tells you what to do, you're gonna remember it, you're gonna do it, and a lot of it comes almost second nature. It's just because we've been doing it in the gym, we've just been working on it. So I really find that bond between trainer and I mean, it could be the assistant trainer as well. It could be the other guys in your team, whoever's in your corner. But I really find that it brings you a lot of strength to have a good team around you.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're coming up. It's just really a small group of guys, like you said, and your trainer. You guys are grinding it out. Talk to me kind of about that amateur period, and then you turned pro fairly quickly, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man. So talk to me about those early days.
I had under 50 amateur fights. I started fighting, that's it. I was kind of on and on. Like I was always in the gym, but it was hard for me to get fights for a lot of years just because there wasn't a big population of fighters around where I come from. And I remember, I did well as an amateur. I remember winning the provincials. I won the Western Canadians. Won the Golden Gloves. I went to the nationals. I lost a count back decision at the nationals. I I just kind of I always loved it. I always had like just an itch for it. And you know what? It was the best thing I ever found. And I mean, it's one of those things where you're working inwards. You work on yourself. You work on your. If you get better, you'll be better. So it's an internal journey, and that's something that I've always liked because it doesn't matter where I was in improving, and if I went anywhere in the world and worked with other fighters or visited another gym, all the stuff I'd been working on, I bring that with me. So when I go to anywhere, I go and train somewhere else, I have all those skills. I go and fight somewhere else, I have all those skills. So I really, at a young age, I learned how to work inwards and work on myself. And without having a huge team around me, I was still able to progress because I had determination. I always worked inwards, and I knew that if I got better, I'd be better. And so I just kept growing, kept working, and I think it was the right kind of path. Intrinsic focus. I work inwards, and I feel like that's a great weapon for any fighter to have, and it's a great focus for all fighters too.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you can do something for other people, and that can take you a far way. But ultimately, if you don't personally want it, I mean, it's just going to be hard to stick with it.
Yes.
So yeah, man. So again, so you start off your career, you're fighting mostly pro career. You're fighting mostly Canadian guys, right?
At the beginning, it was a pretty good mix actually, but I remember my first fight was a Canadian guy, second fight, I guess the first five were like that. And I remember my first fight, I didn't even know who I was fighting. I went, I had been scouted by a good promoter out of Edmonton. Um, rest in peace, Milan Lubovac from KO Boxing. He was the guy who put me on at first, and he saw me. I won the Golden Gloves, and he had offered me the opportunity to go pro. I didn't actually take it up until a couple months later, but I had been contemplating it, and then I remember I had my first fight September 2008, September 9th, 2008. I believe it was. And I got there and a couple things I learned because they asked me, what do you fight at? What weight do you fight at? And I remember I couldn't make 140 or 141 at the time because I didn't know how to cut weight. So I weighed like 145, 146. And I was like, I don't know, I'll just fight at the heavier one. So I always fought at 152. And then little did I know that you cut weight to make fight, to have the fights, and there's a whole strategy to it. But when I turned pro, I told the guys, like, yeah, I usually fight 152, 150. And then so the weight was 150 for my pro debut. And I remember getting there and I weighed probably 147. And then the guy that I fought was an MMA guy. And I saw, as soon as I saw him, I was like, "Ah, okay, this guy's huge, man." And I realized, like, oh, you cut weight to make the fight, but he's a big MMA guy. And they also cut a lot of weight, so it's a little bit extreme as well. And I remember a couple things I remember about the fight. One was before the fight, I talked to somebody and I asked him what he knew about my opponent, and he turned to me and he said, he's a murderous puncher. And he scared the life out of me, man. I remember hearing that and being just like a big like feeling of just terror, I guess. But then he looked at me and said, "Nah, he's an MMA guy. He's kind of stiff." And I was like, "Oh man, he tricked me." I remember just I was so on edge leading up to the fight that everything was really heavy. Everything was intense. Everything was kind of it was tough to deal with, but I had trained so hard for that fight. I remember I put my whole life into it, and I trained for months. I was in the gym all by myself. It's a long story, but I was in the gym working hard. I was working on a lot of things. I was teaching people. I was staying at the gym during that time. I was teaching. I was training. I was sparring, and I was teaching again, and I was training again. I was just on repeat. But because I had done so much leading up to the fight, I wasn't going to be denied. So I was really determined going in. And I remember my pro debut, big guy, but when we started fighting, I had a little more skill than him. I was a little bit sharper than him. I put my punches together nice. And I remember landing a big overhand right. I landed a couple good body shots, and I really had busted them up. And I knew they gave me it was a more majority decision. So it's a close one anyways, but I knew that I had beat him because I had really done some damage in that fight. And when I got that win, it was my whole life came back to a good place. And I remember it was all the hard work, all the doubt, all the frustration, all the fear, all that stuff. It was all worth it, man. And so that was my first feeling of boxing is for me. I did it. It was worth it. And then that took my professional career off. That's how it started. That's how it launched. And then I think I fought 2 months later, a month and a half later, had my second fight. I fought a really, really tough fight in that one too. I fought a guy named Dave Petrick from BC, and he was actually he was on the national team. He was a good amateur fighter, and I didn't know any of this stuff either because at that point in my life, I was just kind of going to fight. I didn't know who my opponent was. I didn't know anything about him. I just knew, I'm going to fight. And I remember seeing David. He was tough, man. That was one of the hardest fights I ever had because I was 19 at the time. He was 28 or something like that. But one, he was strong, and two, he was like he had a boxing mind. He had been a good amateur fighter, and so that was when I really had to dig down. But I ended up pulling it off, and I just kind of outboxed him because he was a strong puncher, and so I started to stick and move, and I used a little bit of my other skills, not just come forward and brawl. I started boxing and moving, and it was a change of game plan, but I won the fight. I won a good decision. I remember beating him. I remember the crowd going crazy in the middle of the last round, and we were both on the ropes just trading. I was on the ropes. He was, but we were just trading. And I remember almost like, and you know how they say a flow state where things start going slow. And I remember he was throwing, I make a miss, and I landed something, and I make a miss, and I landed two punches, and I make. So it was one of those moments where I was really in the moment, I guess, in the fight. And it was another one of those things that really made me fall in love with the game because I remember feeling like I had done. I remember the crowd getting up and screaming and going crazy, and we're brawling, but he couldn't touch me because I was just flowing. And I remember all of this going through that. Oh man, that was one of my favorite fights. And I ended up getting the decision. I won 4-round decision, and it was a tough one though because that one really brought it out of me. But it's another thing that you go through as a fighter that helps you grow and develop. So I'm happy that I did it.
Man, I mean, you talking about like that's so cool how you're up against the ropes, you're telling the story about being in the flow state and the fact that you can hear like the crowd and
Yes.
internalize that while you're in this flow state, bobbing and weaving, hitting, landing punches. That's actually really cool. And being able to just like visualize something like that, like you can just imagine like almost like a movie scene almost,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
imagine. But yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like there's tremendous benefit, honestly, in being tested early. Like you said, this guy was first of all, you were fighting the MMA fighter first, who's of course these guys are utmost professionals at cutting weight.
Yeah.
Um,
He's a big guy. He was a big guy.
yeah, those guys are wizards with the cutting weight. I just talked to an MMA guy on my last interview, and yeah, these guys are like he took me through the whole weight cutting pro. Like it is crazy, but
Yeah.
so you have that, and then you're fighting a kid or a guy on the that was on the national team.
Yeah.
So of course, two experienced guys. So like I said, I think there's tremendous benefit in that. Of course, seems like your career has been one of like resilience and kind of using that to your advantage.
Right.
So then, you're further on in your career, you start racking up a ton of these minor titles. You're going on
Yeah.
win streaks, racking up these minor titles. So talk to me about that and just fighting and kind of becoming basically one of the most popular fighters out of Canada right now. How that.
Hey, I love to hear that. I appreciate that. Well, I mean, it was just the gradual progression, I guess, as I, started to level up. I remember when I'm 2-0, I fought a guy who's 2-0. And then when I get up a little bit higher, I fight another guy who's pretty, it's like you want to push the fighter to the right point, but I was in a spot where, they weren't, I don't know if they were guiding me or if they were testing me. So I was getting these tough fights, but exactly, it was a good thing because now that I went through it, I looked at the fighters who had kind of the build up fights and I saw it a little bit differently. So I was able to use my experience. And when I went up against guys who had only fought opponents or guys that they were supposed to beat, it was a little bit different because I had this mentality where, it's a fight and I need to figure out how to win. And it's not like, oh, I'm the A side, he's the B side. He's being brought in for me to beat him. And it was never like that. It was always like, okay, who's gonna win? Who's gonna take this? Who's gonna take the decision and who's gonna earn it? And I'm happy that that happened because I feel like that's fighting. That's like what boxing is. There's a little bit too much of the A side, B side nowadays in boxing especially when you're building guys up and the guy's got, he's up and coming or he has a good amateur career and then you get him a bunch of opponents for him to beat so that he builds his record. And I understand that too because I've seen a lot of guys do that successfully and you build their confidence in themselves and you build their skills at the same time. And then in parallel, you can make a champion like that. I've watched that happen as well. But the game is about being able to stand up to challenges and being able to face challenges. So you also need to test yourself, even if you're being backed by a promoter. It's a very good idea to push yourself, take tough fights, see if you can do it, go against the better opposition, take the choice of, the tougher fight, not the easier one, because later down the road, you're going to remember that you did that and it's going to bring you confidence. And that was something that in the middle of my career when I was fighting a bunch of undefeated up and coming guys, but I had a loss or two. They looked at me like I wasn't, I wasn't, they looked at me like I was an opponent. But I remember thinking like I'm gonna pull this off. I'm not here to be denied. And then sometimes the guys can I don't want to say overlook you because they were still preparing for me, but it's just determination goes a long way, man. And when you really want it, it doesn't matter the details or the little things. It matters how bad you want it, how hard you're gonna push, and mental resilience. It's an inward journey, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you said, I want to reiterate what you said at the beginning of this was how important is that? I love the way you put it was that, like, this A side, B side stuff, there's just too much of that in boxing now. And I think that's hurting the brand of boxing. And I
Yep.
like more people need to hear that because it's honestly, you do feel like a lot of the time that there's politics involved. Even we're not saying the fight's rigged, but I'm just
No.
saying, right, right. We're just saying, like, yeah, there's too much. There is a point to build fighters up. Completely understand
Yep.
that. But at the same time, when you got stat patterns with, 25 fights, 25 wins, 23 knockouts, and it's like
Yeah.
journeyman, I completely
Yeah. And
understand that. Yeah, I mean, you're basically building these guys up to go into these fights of like, yeah, you're supposed to win this. It's so I really like the way you put that. But yeah,
yeah.
so now we're getting towards the later. There was a fight. I wish I remember the name. I can't remember his name, but I saw that on his record he was undefeated. There was a minor belt on the line. He was undefeated. You gave him his first loss, and then a couple fights later, uh, he ended up beating you. Do you know which fight I'm talking about?
Eves. Eves
Yes,
Ulyss
yes, yes,
Jr. Yep.
yes. Let's talk about that
Yeah.
one.
So okay, so he's 14-0. I think I'm 17-2 at that point in time. Um, he's signed by Eye of the Tiger. Eye of the Tiger is my promoter now, later in life, my promotional outfit. And Eye of the Tiger, you know what? That was one of the reasons that I was absolutely in to work with Eye of the Tiger because even when I was the opponent, they gave me a fair shake. They gave me there was transparency in the negotiations. They told me all the details. It was awesome. And they've always done great business. But I went there. I remember 8 weeks before the fight, I went to Montreal for one day to do the press conference to announce the fight. Eves is a an up and coming, he's 14-0. He's a good fighter and he had a good amateur career. And I was I think I was 17-2 or somewhere around there. But it was pretty much it was looking like he was gonna beat me and build up off of my name. But during that time I had just switched gyms and I was with a good team that I was really, really motivated with and I was working hard and we trained we did a full training camp, man. We worked so hard for that one. And I trained it's like the answer is always in the training camp. When you do the work, you'll get the result. And that was one of the fights when I worked so hard. I remember going to Montreal for one day. I do the press conference and I go back and I'm like, okay, well, this is real. We're in this. And then I trained every day. I was working as hard as I could and I was ready, working on game plan, strategy, structure according to his style. And I was really going deep into the game plan. And what happened was in the fight, um, he's boxing really well, but I was putting the pressure on him. And then my style, I was getting to him. I was landing a bunch of these punches that were adding up. And he was boxing and moving, but I feel like I got the better of him. And so did the judges because they gave me the decision. I won a 10-round decision against him for the IBF North American title. And that was a breakout fight for me because it was something that I really, really worked hard for that one, and then I saw it all the way through. And then in the fight, it was my determination that carried it. And Eves is a really, really good fighter too. So it was a back and forth battle. And then that's just kind of it was one of those ones that with the team behind me, the people behind me, and the work that I put in, I wasn't going to be denied. And that's pretty much what got it done.
And then there was, I believe, what was like two fights, maybe three fights in between the next time you faced him.
Yeah, something like that. I can't actually remember the exact details, but I know that we fought on a Golden Boy show in Indio, California against him. Um, and that one was, I mean, that one's up on YouTube, that the second one. And he won the decision. He beat me decision, but it was close. And it was one of those ones where I coulda, shoulda, woulda done a bunch of different things to change it, but you got to be smart enough to do it in the middle of the fight. So after the fight, I was like, oh, I should have just done this. Oh, I should have just changed and done this. But you got to make those adaptations in the middle of the fight. And now, mind you, it was another close one. Both times we fought were really close fights. So that was just a lesson in the game, I guess you could call that one.
Yeah, yeah, man. So again, you're going through. You have a very impressive record at this point, and you're kind of more or less, maybe not like calling your shot at this point, but you're definitely. I think you had multiple belts at this point, right? Of the minor belts.
Yeah, I had a Canadian title and the IBF North American title. Actually, I had both the Canadian titles and then the IBF North American title.
Did you ever have the NABF?
Yeah, yeah. I had the NABF a couple of years ago. I fought Alberto Machado for it,
Yeah.
and that was a great fight as well because he was a world champion. He was a really good fighter.
So, before I do want to throw a couple fun questions out before we get into the end, not the end, but the most recent fights.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I guess let's just go. One I usually ask is like just the typical. Who was to date the hardest fight you think you've had?
Okay. Okay. The hardest fight I've ever had was probably Petros Ananian. So I fought Petros Ananian. He was 13-0. Um, it was during the time that there's so much. It was during the time that I had signed with a promotional company who was like a co-promoter, and I didn't know. So he was getting me fights. And then the first guy that I fight is 15-0. Then I fought Eves, he was 14-0. Then I fight uh Petros and Anya, he's 13-0. And I started to realize a trend here. And I was like, okay, so I have signed an agreement to be an opponent. Is that what's going on? And that was you know what? I'll tell you what, you got to trust the people that you're with in boxing. Okay, because your team is really important, and your team also has your back, and or they could not. Because at that time, I remember asking my promoter at the time, what's up with this? And he told me that I'm a Canadian boy and he's a big dog in the States. And if I have a problem with it, I'll see him in American court. And I remember being like, okay, okay, so we're taking this fight then. But it worked out. It worked out. It wasn't the end. And it was just during that time, I was fighting all undefeated guys because we were with a co-promoter and he was putting me on other guys' shows. However, I had the kind of discovery, I guess, that like when the guy hasn't lost or he hasn't really fought anyone, they're kind of expecting to win. They're kind of expecting the show to go for them. It's like the A side thing. If you've always been the A side, you don't really know what it feels like on the other side of things. So I was able to use that in a way because I was fighting all these undefeated guys and they were kind of looking at me like I was an opponent. However, I was treating it like it's the biggest fight of my life, and I'm showing up ready to do what I've trained my whole life to do. And I during those couple of years, I remember I beat quite a few undefeated guys, and that was a mental strength that I had. I was like, you know what? They haven't been through it like I've been through it, and I was able to use that. And I think it's a lot of things for fighters. It's like how you sell it to yourself. It's like, okay, I have losses, and he doesn't. He doesn't know what I've been through. Like it was almost like a way to use it as opposed to, have it kind of weaken me. I use it as a strength. I've been through the trenches. I've been through, I went through the ups and downs, and now more than ever. But during those times, I remember looking at those fighters and I almost saw it as a weakness that they had never lost. I almost saw it as a weakness mentally. They didn't know. They thought I'm just coming in to lose. So I use that. And I always remember that you work inwards, you use your strengths, and that was one of the things that really helped me. Determination, like I can beat this undefeated guy because he's never been defeated. He doesn't know what it's like on the other side. And mental strength, just resilience and stubbornness, I guess. That's how we got it done during those years.
What's that like, kind of seeing, so you beat an undefeated guy, right? And you see his reaction after the fight. Like, what's that like?
Well, the fighter himself, I don't I want the best for him because that's a weird one because like I don't find joy in the fact that I beat him and took it from him. It's not about that. For me, the fight's like I want to win for me. I know he's undefeated, all this stuff. I'm not worried about him. I want to win for me. I want to beat this undefeated guy for me. After the fight, I want him to be totally okay. I want him to be happy. I want him to be healthy. I want him to be all right. That's like that's a weird thing about fighters. It's like I remember someone said it to me. He said, "You want him dead for 13 seconds, just in case the count is long. But then after that, you want him to be totally okay, back to life, healthy, feeling good, and back to his normal self." And that's true because we're all just fighters. And that was kind of how I felt after the fight as well when I beat the undefeated guys, a bunch of the undefeated guys. Afterwards, it's like just respect, get back to it. It's not over till it's over. And then I remember losing my O, so I know the pain of it. But when I had seen the guy that I just wish him the best. He'll bounce back. That's kind of the name of the game, resilience. You got to be able to bounce back, and that's what I mean. You don't want the worst for him. You're happy that you won the fight, but you're not happy that he lost the fight. It's just that was just the exchange that we had.
Yeah. Now, you said, shoot, well, I guess I could try to think if I could set this up. Yeah, I'll probably, well, no, I'll ask it since this kind of segues. Uh, did you have a fight that you ever felt like, okay, this guy's taking it personal, or this guy genuinely wants to see you get hurt, or anything like that?
Um, I couldn't. You can't tell in the middle of it. Like going in, everybody's intense. Going up to the fight, everybody's intense. They want to get you. Like they always, a guy look at you like he wants to take your head off and all this stuff. But there's definitely some guys who are a little bit meaner than others. I remember fighting a guy named Ricky Duenas. Ricky Duenas was a tough dude. I fought him in Ontario, California. I can't remember his record, 10-1 or something like that, but he could punch. And I remember he was a mean dude and he was a tough dude. And I remember his whole team of friends, like I remember walking through and looking, and there was like 100 people in the hotel lobby, and I was like, I am on edge right now. But it was kind of I got respect after the fight because you're the fighter. We're not there just causing trouble. You're there for a reason. You're there doing it professionally. And I mean, I've fought some guys. Okay, I'll tell you one when my first professional loss that I ever had. I remember fighting a guy. He had Japanese blood. He's Filipino, but he had Japanese mix. And then it was during the tsunamis in Japan and all this stuff. Like this guy was going through a bunch of ups and downs in life deeper than boxing. And I remember looking at a man who looked at me with like absolute, not, I don't want to say desperation, but willingness to do anything to win. And I remembered that, and I saw a different look. And me at that point in time, I thought the fight's about me. I'm going over to the Philippines. I have a big fight. And they're bringing me here to win. And I looked at a guy who was ready to do anything to win, and that one humbled me because it was it was a great fight. I put him down, I dropped him, but he got up, and I dropped him again, and he got up, and tried to swing for the kill, but I hurt myself. I injured myself in the fight, and then he came back, and then we were having a war, and then his determination, he just put it on. Like it was one of those ones where I saw someone, he wanted it so bad that he was able to get up twice, get up from injury, like, and he fought all the way. And then I got stopped standing up. I was still on my feet with like 10 seconds left in the fight. That one kills me because had it gone 10 more seconds, I win. But I don't know that maybe it was a good stoppage because I was so injured after the fight that it was it was probably the right move. However, when I fought someone like this who had such determination, it's like that's a hard guy to go against. It wasn't that he was mean. It wasn't, I don't want to say desperate, but he would do anything to win. And then I fought another couple tough guys, mean guys, but mean doesn't really impress me because everybody looks mean before a fight. The guy who wants it bad's the one who can get it done. And when you fight a guy who's all in, that's the real danger. That's the kind of guy that you got to watch out for in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that sounds kind of like the Fury, the whole Fury coming back from that, brink of death almost. And
Right?
basically, right, and getting dropped and getting back up. And like everybody was like, wow. So that's pretty interesting. Plus that Filipino culture, man, that's like they are intense. You see those
Tough,
balls.
man.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like your reason why and your determination as to how far you'll take it. That those two things go a long way for fighters. Because if you have a reason to do it and you won't quit no matter what, that's a tough guy to beat, man.
I mean, yeah. And actually, I want to ask, as I see in the background, you got a little Muhammad Ali. Is that on the wall?
Yeah, yeah,
And I think, maybe it wasn't him. I know Mickey, or not Mickey Mantle. I want to say maybe it was Babe Ruth, but I don't know. Somebody had that quote, kind of like, if you work hard every day, that's a tough guy to beat, a guy that's not going to
yeah,
quit, essentially.
yeah,
Um,
man.
yeah, yeah. So who is you got any favorite fighter?
Oh man, I love a lot of fighters for different reasons. I have a huge, you know what? Okay, so I spent a couple of years of my life where I lived in Las Vegas, and I was training out of the Mayweather Gym, and Floyd was around, and he was always my favorite because he wasn't just the fighter, he was a personality. He was a money maker. He's here, he's given all this different, it's like a different look to the game. So he made a different thing. And I always loved like watching Floyd, man. He was one of the absolute best. And his persona outside of the ring and his ability to stir things up and his intelligence when it came to marketing, I love that. And then on the other side, I love Manny Pacquiao, man. Manny Pacquiao's story, come from nothing, build it up and fight all the way through weight class after weight class. Like that is determination. And then as far as my own style, I love Mickey Ward, man. Mickey Ward with the left hook to the body. That was one of the punches that did me a lot of good. I got it from watching him versus Arturo Gatti. Arturo Gatti is another one of my favorites because he's a blood and guts warrior, and the heart that he put into the fight like that. There's nothing like that. So I always took little pieces from all these different fighters. I never really had one favorite. I just had different like favorites for different reasons, like different skills, different things. I love the David Tua. I love the left hook. You know what I mean? Like there's always just Julian Jackson. I love the right hook. And so there's always something. And you always take a little bit from this fighter, from this fighter. So I had a bunch of favorites. I couldn't narrow it down to just one, but you take a piece from this guy, a little piece from this guy, a weapon from that guy. I think that's the way to build a well-rounded kind of game.
100%. I mean, that's definitely the best way, having multiple different inspirations. Now, you say you being around Floyd, and I don't know if you can speak to this at all, but basically the running consensus of him is like he is a consummate professional when it comes to if he goes out on a night of partying, he's jogging home from the club. If he's, whatever he's doing, he's matching it with that work as well. Can you speak to that at all, just being around him?
Yeah, he's just I don't want to say a gym guy. He's an athlete. It's just where his whole life revolves around the sport. You do it like this, you do it like you work on these things. So it's like it's been passed down from generations and generations of just boxing knowledge. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And then he adds his own extra stuff too. And I think that his like mental game is where he's so strong because he'll do everything and he'll outwork everyone. He'll come back and train again, and then he'll come back and train again. And then you'll see him coming back one more. Like he's such a worker, and he knows that the other guys aren't going to upkeep that same pace. And he just has that belief in himself where it's really hard to deny a guy who does the work, believes in himself, has the skill, has the experience, and knows the game. It's like, man, there's a couple of reasons behind the undefeated. That's a hard thing to replicate for sure.
And he's and kind of like I wouldn't say other guys are following in what he's doing now, but definitely seeing a lot more than you see. I mean, you see Manny Pacquiao still fighting. Of course, he's fighting in an actual competitive, um, kind of situation. Whereas Floyd's not as much competitive, more it's just exhibitions. But you see these guys fighting a little bit now into their older age. That's two of easily of the greatest of all time. The fact, I mean, like obviously what Floyd's doing is crazy, but he's probably never going to lose that O, even like an exhibition fight, just because it's they're handpicked. But like, dude, what Manny Pacquiao's doing is like
Yeah,
nuts, dude. Like, what's he like number
unreal.
three ranked right now in his weight class?
Yeah, like unbelievable. And to come up and to go up that many weight classes and still be going at this age, and he has all this experience, and man, Manny Pacquiao is a living legend. He's a he's a he's a great example. And you know what? He's one of those guys like when he started boxing in the Philippines, I don't know if it was like huge, but it was probably pretty big, but he didn't know too much about it. But then after Manny Pacquiao, the Philippines is known for boxing. And that's how you take an entire country behind you. And that's why it's really motivating because you can see one person move an entire country because everyone believes in their guy and everyone gets behind him. And that's motivational, man. That's one of those things. It's like you can move mountains you with your own determination, and everyone will follow you if you do it and you believe in it. You can get it done. You can bring a whole country behind you, bring a whole nation behind you, and that's inspiring. So I always really liked watching guys like Manny because they change the world, man.
No doubt. I mean, you're kind of speaking what you're talking about with Manny. I mean, even in your own life, you're trailblazing for Western Canada. In the fights you've taken and the success you've had. So, kind of segueing into the next thing is kind of these recent fights. Been a lot of your biggest fights, obviously the TO fight. So just talk about your recent fights and what that whole situation was like. Obviously, specifically about the TO fight as well.
Well, leading up to the Teo fight was I went on a pretty good run. Because I remember I fought Carlos Sanchez, I believe he was 24-1. I fought Miguel Medueno, he was 30-1. I fought Barraza, he was 23-3. I fought like I fought a great Canadian boy in Tony Lewis. Man, it's just been great, tough fight after tough fight over the last little while. So it's been good. But that run of like the couple of fights when I was beating all those guys, I beat a couple good names, good records, and that's what put me up into the runnings for the Teal fight. And then Teofimo had the fight with Jermaine Ortiz. And I remember after the fight, everybody was kind of booing him and yelling because they said it was a boring fight. I mean, styles make fights, so you can't blame anybody in that. But what happened was because it was a boring fight, they needed someone who's going to come forward to bring the action. So that's why I got the opportunity. I was ranked by the WBO, and therefore we can fight for the world title. And that one kind of I don't it kind of pisses me off because I got ready for a come forward fight, an all action fight, like I was being recruited to go and do. The whole fight he boxed and moved. So I learned the lesson of the ability to adapt is an important piece. If you want to be a champion, you have to be able to change the game plan in the middle of the fight because I felt like I was pushing the pace coming forwards, but I'm falling into a rhythm. He's not pushing them. He's not coming forwards. He's not. He said he was going to come fight me like that. He didn't. He did the smart thing where he boxed and moved, and he was in great shape, and um, stylistically, he did the right things. And that's where I'm like, hey, I got to be smart. Now, next time I get the big fight, you got to be able to change it up on the fly. Okay, this game plan is not working. We're going to do it this way now. Okay, he's not fighting coming forwards. He's moving. Okay, we're going to cut the ring. We're going to stand in the middle. Just kind of adaptability. I think that's a big piece. That's what Floyd says. A true champion can adapt to anything. And it's true because you got to be able to switch your game plan in the middle of a bout, and that's easier said than done. But with practice and experience, you know what you're looking at. So next time, I will.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, you go to any of the forums, excuse me, any of the fight forums, or any, even just watch the fight yourself, and you see pretty much what you're saying is the case. Is I think even though you obviously lost that fight, you brawled it out. It was a 12-round bout, and the guys that saw it knew what was going on, and I think you gave the fans something that they don't see in a lot of championship fights now. You don't see a lot of that brawling in the championship fights, at least from what I've seen. Now the heavyweight's a little different because those guys have no other choice but to brawl. But yeah, I think you bring that excitement to that weight class. And then you had, like we already kind of talked about a little bit. You had one fight after, and then of course this, and that was in no, what was it, like August,
October.
October,
October. I
October.
had, yeah. So
Um, yeah,
October,
so it's been a little bit of a layoff, but
yeah.
what do you have your sights set on for 2026?
March. I'm fighting in March. And
Yeah.
I've been ready and now I'm back. I've got two arms again. I've been sparring, working hard for the last month or so. Well, one, I knew I made the right decision when the fight date, August 23rd, went by, and I couldn't use my arm at all. And I was like, okay, that one brought some peace to my mind because, like, okay, I made the right choice there. That's all right. And then now I just get ready for the next one, man. I'm gonna fight on the next. I believe it's the Eye of the Tiger show. They have a February card, but I'm on the March card, or I'm on the one after. So what we're gonna do is just keep training, keep getting ready. Um, I'm just I've been with all of my teammates getting ready for fights. So it's been an active time in the gym, which is where a lot of the work goes down. And I feel like you can get out of shape if you're not in the gym, but I'm a gym guy, man. I've been getting in better and better shape every week. and I know how hungry I am. I know how hard I've been working, and it's not over till it's over. So I'm ready for a big year this year, and we're I'm working with Eye of the Tiger, my promoter, and we're looking at the options, we're looking at the offers, and I mean, we're gonna make it a big year. I'll tell you that. There's sky's the limit right now. And now that I've seen the top of the mountain, man, I'm just ready to go back there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you get that rush, like you said, at the top of the mountain. It's not enough. You want to keep going back, and yeah, man. I
Exactly.
mean, the notion that it's over is ridiculous. I mean, you just had
Yeah.
essentially one of your biggest fights of your careers.
Yeah.
Obviously 2 fights ago. I mean, you definitely. I think, man. From what I've seen and from what I'm hearing now, it sounds like you got that championship experience now too, that world championship
Yeah.
experience. So
Yeah.
so every fight's gonna be a little different now. So what does a typical training week look like for you right now?
Well, me, I live in training camp right now, so it's kind of like I do my road work in the morning. I do my boxing stuff in the afternoon. I do my strength and conditioning at night, and then after that, I do my stretching and my mobility work. But I'm pretty much doing that every day. I rest Sunday, but yeah, I just stick to it. And then we spar twice a week. And then sometimes I'll get when other friends are in or other fighters in around the city are in training camp, they'll often contact me and say, "Hey, can I get some work?" Like, so I'll spar 2, maybe 3 times a week, but I'm training 3 times a day, man. I'm working hard, and that's why I keep saying, if you get better, you'll be better. That's why me from last year, I'll beat him up. Me from last week, I'll beat him up too. And that's why I'm just staying steady. And I've lived a lifetime in training camps. And now it's to the point where it's not really a camp. I don't know, I'm just a gym guy. I go to the gym, I go to the other gym. I have all my friends there here in Calgary. So it's kind of fun. And it's a good social life and all that stuff too. But I do my work, man. I do my work. And then I've gotten to a place now where I'm just steady building, getting ready for the next one and ready for a big year. So I'm just tunnel vision, man.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
So
at.
so I had 2 questions. The first one is how much of course it's probably gonna differ on the day. Like what are you put like road work wise? Like how many miles are we doing?
I run half an hour in the morning
Okay.
just because it's a 10 round fight. So one day I timed it. I run to the same place, but I run to that same place and I always shadow box and I do some stuff. There's a big park over there, so I shadow box. I do some working out. I do some jumps or whatever I'm working on. But every day I always kind of vary it. However, that's one that I always do a little shakeout in the morning, a little run because it's good for my mind. It kind of helps me level out and clear my head. It's good for my body because it's good. You do your cardio, you get your wind, you open up your lungs, you get your legs working, get the blood flowing, and then it's good routine because it's not easy. So it's not like the most fun thing to do, but after you've done it for a long time, it kind of becomes part of the program. And then it was something actually when I was a little bit younger, when I used to live in Las Vegas, my trainer used to wake me up at I think he would wake me up at 7:30 in the morning because it's too hot in Vegas. By about like 10:30, it's hot out there, especially in the summertime, man. And so he'd wake me up at 7:30, and then I gotta go for the run. And I'm running by 8. And I remember like I hated it, man. I hated it. I didn't like it. I run at 8 in the morning, come back at 8:45 or something like that. And then I would eat a little something. I'd shower, I'd eat a little something, then I would actually go back to sleep. And I remember getting up one day and I was like, it's like 11 in the morning. And I've already done the hardest, like the run was the part that I didn't like. So I've already done the hard thing. That's what they say, do the hard thing in the morning. But that was literally me doing the hard thing in the morning on my trainer's uh my trainer's rule. Like I had to do it. But it became a good habit. I remember the one day when I woke up and it was like 10:30 in the morning and I was like, I woke up. I've already done the hard stuff. I felt like I've already done everything. Like the days just began. It's 10:30 in the morning. I feel like I've done everything. But that idea of do the hard thing in the morning, that was always a good one. And that was something that I took from my years in Vegas, and I do it now today. I don't do it at that not so early, but I do it on my own terms, and I still do my run first thing in the morning.
I 100% know what you mean. That's actually funny you say that because it's like if you have a day of like right let's just 2 miles planned and then you got like a couple of maybe a lift in there and then like some recovery. It sounds like okay, like you might wake up and not want to do any of it, but once you get the run out of the way, it's almost like oh, all I got to do now is lift and like it seems like
It's
it's
like
not.
I love lifting. I love
Yeah,
recovering. That's beautiful. Yeah, man. So
right.
it is. It's the way that you structure it, the things that you like, and then like I feel like when you've done it a couple times, you know that it works. So then you're more willing to do it because I'll get up and do my run because after I've done it, I feel great. So it's like that's like I think it's a mental hurdle, but once you've overcame that, it's a good strength. So sometimes you got to put yourself through the hard stuff, but as a fighter, a as a training kind of a little push, a little boost, it's a good thing. Go through the hard stuff because it'll help you gain momentum.
Yeah, for sure. The momentum piece too is the momentum and the confidence, and that's two of the biggest things in the fight game. I think personally. Um,
Yep, agreed.
so the last kind of fun question I'll ask before we close out here is like, what do we do? Like, are you a sauna, ice cold, cold plunge guy? Like, how does that look?
I do the cold plunge. I do the
You
cold
cold
plunge.
plunge, no sauna?
I know I do the sauna as well. I do all of it, man, because that was another thing I learned about like temperature therapy, doing hot, cold, like even right now, like it's cold out in Calgary where I am, but I'll run. I'll run outside too, and I kind of like it. I don't know why, but I dress a little bit warm, but when the sun's out, you're good. You can do it. And I'll run out in the cold, no problem. I run all year long. And that's another one. Mental resilience, man. You build that. And I used to hate it, but now I love it. And I feel like yeah, it's like anything. You use that muscle gets stronger. So the determination muscle to do the things that you don't really want to do, just do a couple days and then watch and see. Everything will change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool too because I feel like everything in life is almost like a muscle of like if you let it atrophy, it's gonna atrophy. If you work it, it's gonna get stronger. And a big thing I told one of my friends, he was injured, and I also had a pretty bad injury a couple of years ago. And I was like, dude, honestly, in my opinion, like even if you can't work out, just do something that will benefit you that's challenging because at the end of the day you can physically get in shape. It's not that hard. But the
Right.
discipline is the hard part, for some
Yep.
people. So if you can keep that discipline through that injury phase, then the physical part will come right back when you get back to working out. Um, so
Right.
so yeah, so I think that's really cool that you seem to have well, I mean, obviously you're a vet at this point. You definitely have a good grasp of that. Um, so yeah, I mean, we already talked about your 2026 plans. Do you have any plans as far as like let's say you rattle off a couple wins in these next fights? Do you have any guys in specific that you would like to see?
I never really got too hooked on getting attached to names. You know what I mean? Because like any of the top 10, because it doesn't really matter who it is. Because, if you don't get that fight, then you kind of had that, like, oh, I was getting ready for that style or this. The thing that I want is a guy who's going to come forward and fight me in an all action fight so that we can put on one for the fans because a lot of times you need that what they call a dance partner, somebody who's going to come and bring it like Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti, another one. Again, that's one that I watched where they're just two guys with determination on a similar path who wanted it so bad and it led to some of the greatest fights of all time. And something like that, I'm looking for somebody who's hungry. I'm looking for somebody who really, really wants it like I want it. And then as far as the political side of things, I'm looking for anybody in the top 10 because I want to get that world title. And I got to climb my way back up to get another shot, but it ain't over till it's over. So I'm ready for whoever, man. That's pretty much where I stand.
Sounds great. And these will be the last. Well, this is the last question I guess I have for you. We got two huge fights on the national scene coming up. We got Mario Barrios Garcia in February, and then we got Shakur and Teo here at the end of
Yeah.
January. I'm sure you're going to be watching those. You got any predictions?
Um, yeah. Okay, so the Shakur Teal, oh man, that's a good fight. I hope that they don't both box and move the whole time. I hope that they exchange a little bit.
But that's
Um,
what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Shakur. You know what I mean? Like it's literally
yeah,
both
they're
their
real.
styles.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see how big Shakur is because that was the one thing about Tio. He was a big guy, and I knew going in, like, they have the whole team behind them. They know how to cut weight, they know how to do that, but whatever. And then when I got it, like I remember at the weigh-in, we weighed this, but then on fight day, I'm like, oh, he's like a different guy. This guy's huge, man. But I wasn't thinking about that. I just noticed later. I was okay. But that rehydration, that process, if you have a good team behind you, you know how to do it. That's a very interesting one. I hope that I mean, I know that Shakir is gonna box and move and stick and move and do all this stuff. I hope it's more action packed than what I think it's gonna be. But I think Shakir is gonna be able to just not get touched and pull off a decision. Now, mind you, Teo gave me the chance, so I hope that Teo can do it. That's what I am hoping for. And then Barrios, I think Barrios is still doing good, man. I think
Yeah.
he's still, yeah, I think Barrios is gonna pull that off.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
That'll
I
be
don't know.
interesting. I mean, like I personally, at all hype aside, I do think Ryan Garcia is a really good fighter.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
so yeah, I think that'll be an interesting one. Of course, coming off the heels of the whole Haney situation,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, man.
But I mean, hey, that one's a good one because they're two wiry guys who are gonna throw a lot of punches. So I think that'll be an action-packed fight. And that's what we like. And when there's a little bit of an ego going in, like Garcia's gonna come and he wants to prove a point. So he's gonna come in and fight. And Barrios has been in there with Pacquiao and stuff, so he's gonna know what he's doing. But I think Barrios, because of his experience, I lean that way. And then I'm leaning towards Shakur for his just his movement, his technical savvy. He's going to be so sharp. But I want Tio to do it because he gave me the opportunity, so I want him to pull it off.
Yeah, two pretty good analysis on that fight actually. I'm going to be definitely watching them. We got an excited year coming up for you personally, for boxing in general, hopefully. And yeah, man, do you have anything else you want to say before we end off here?
Well, man, I'm just happy to be here. And for anybody watching, just look up Steve Dragon or S Dragon. You can find me. And I mean, let's make it a great year. I'm wishing the best for all the guys, all the guys and girls moving with us and going forwards. Let's make it a year to remember. How about that?
Yeah, sounds great, man. Hey, thank you so much for being here, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve, the Dragon Claggett.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. Yep, that was the Steve Claggett interview. Great conversation with a great dude. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys next time.